So first off, I went out earlier to celebrate a close friend's birthday with a couple of other friends. Everything went fine, despite it being in a park in a bad part of the city. I don't drive, so I tend to take the bus anywhere I need to go, as it's not only quicker and safer than walking, but it's a convenient way to get from one part of the city to the next. I had hopped onto the bus I would need to take to get home, and it was starting to get dark outside, as it was approximately 9:20 p.m. This didn't bother me, as I was sure that once I was back in my area, I wouldn't need to worry about any real danger. Little did I know how wrong I would be. The bus arrived at a mall parking lot where it stays for a few minutes to give the driver a break before continuing the route, which is when they'll get off for a few minutes and have a smoke or something like that. As I was waiting for the driver to get back on and continue the route, I spotted a man through the window parallel to me. He was staring right at me, which quite understandably unsettled me a bit. Maybe 5 minutes later, the driver opens the door to get back on, letting the guy who was staring at me outside the bus on. It was much later at that point, nearing 10 p.m., so the bus wasn't very crowded. There was about maybe 5 other people on there, so there was no shortage of seats, but that didn't stop him from walking to the back of the bus where I was sitting, and he proceeded to sit behind me. Considering the fact that he was staring right at me through the window a few minutes ago, I was becoming a bit paranoid. I brushed it off as my anxiety getting the better of me, but things still just didn't feel right. It didn't take long to get to my stop from there, and I proceeded to pull the cord and get off the bus. However, I looked behind me out of habit and saw he got off too. This was when some red flags began to raise in my mind. All this was becoming a bit too much to be a coincidence. He ended up calling out to me, and for some reason I stopped to hear him for just a moment. Despite my better judgment, after all, I was on my own street now. Even so, I didn't let my guard down for a minute. I may be soft-hearted, but I'm not stupid. That was my first mistake. I should have kept on walking. I took off my headphones and asked him to repeat himself, as I hadn't heard what he said the first time. The first thing he says is, "Please, be my girlfriend." Some assume that having random guys asking them such a question would be a huge compliment, but considering that I had no clue who the hell he was, it was late at night, and that I'm still technically a minor in my country, I was more than freaked out. Attempting to keep a straight and serious face, I quickly replied, "Please don't. I don't know you." Looking back on it, I could have responded much better, and perhaps this wouldn't have gotten so out of hand if I had. But fight or flight was kicking in, and all logic had left me at that point. Without waiting for a response, I turned away and began walking faster. That was my second mistake. Usually, I know not to turn your back on someone who could potentially be dangerous, and to try and have your back facing a wall or the side of the house so they can't get behind you. But for the same reason above, it hadn't occurred to me. He was still shouting, insisting that I give him my phone number, to which I loudly yelled, "Please, just leave me alone." He asked me again for it, becoming more forceful with his words as I sped up trying to lose him. His insistence was making me nervous, as he was becoming persistent. Wait, phone number, I want your phone number, give me your phone number," was the sentence I kept hearing as he followed me, every time telling him no and to leave me alone. I had enough sense left in my head to turn around and take in as many identifying details as I could, in the case that things went badly. I didn't know what he could have had planned, and there are frequent issues with stabbings and human trafficking in my city, so needless to say, I was terrified. I was almost home, but he was still following me at this point, continuing to yell at me to give him my phone number, and every time I kept giving him the same answer, hoping he'd back off. He followed me into my parking lot, and at that point, I was running. I'm not athletic, but needless to say, I valued my life and didn't want to take a chance with losing it. as he easily could have had a weapon on him. I got into my house safe, but I worried that he saw me go in. I told my mom about the guy, and she was pissed. She posted his description and the story of what happened on her Facebook, just to be safe. Right now, it's a bit past midnight, but I know I won't be sleeping a wink. The whole situation stressed me out so bad I don't even want to close my eyes, just so I can be prepared if something like a break-in happens. You can never be too sure. I've been talking with a close friend of mine who has helped me calm down immensely after the whole stalking incident, and I can't be more grateful. I still can't help but wonder what his intentions were. Was he just a normal guy who didn't know enough was enough? I'm a fairly average-looking person, and I just wasn't getting good vibes from him, so I'm not convinced that was it, leading me to believe it was something more sinister. I'll try to get some sleep eventually, but my mind is a bit too busy for that right now. Hopefully I won't run into him again. The following is a very true experience. I've never actually wrote this down before, and I don't know if anyone else has experienced this too. This happened between 1989 and 1990, and I was about the age of 4 years old. To this day, I still get chills thinking about it, and I wonder if in some unknown way, it changed me. My parents had a house in the Inland Empire of Southern California, and at the time my brother hadn't been born yet, so I was still the only child. To give you a layout, my parents' house was a 2-story house located in a cul-de-sac. On the bottom floor there were 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, the living room, and the kitchen. The second floor was just the master bedroom and bath. All you could see from the street was the garage and one of the bedroom windows on the bottom floor and the window of my mom's bathroom on the second floor. To get to the front door, you had to walk along the cement pathway that ran along the side of the house. You had to pass the first bedroom that you can see from the street, then you pass the bathroom window and then another bedroom window, and then you would be at the front door. The backyard was beyond that point. My bedroom at the time was the bedroom next to the front door. Now, for some reason, my blinds weren't completely down to the bottom of the window. There was about a 6-inch gap with nothing covering it. I was pretty young, so I didn't really care much about it then. The bed was in the middle of the wall across from my bedroom door, and to the left was the window. According to my mom, this all happened right before midnight. My mother was asleep in her room upstairs, and my dad was a policeman that worked nights in another city. I was fast asleep in my room, and out of nowhere, I suddenly awoke. Looking up at the ceiling, I don't know what woke me, or if I just popped awake on my own. After my eyes adjusted to the nightlight of my bedroom, I sat up and started looking around my room. All of a sudden, something caught my eye at the window, in the gap. First, I thought it was the streetlight reflecting on the window, but I knew for a fact that there was only one streetlight, and what I was looking at was 2 obvious glowing spots that were spaced apart, as if on someone's face. Then I thought, is that a cat looking at me? And yes, I vividly remember thinking these things, trying to debunk this at 4 years old. I had remembered then that my cat Chelsea's eyes would reflect at night, but this looked different than that. The cat's eyes would almost have 2 different colors when reflecting. These 2 were very solid, bright, white, glowing eyes, looking straight at me. I just stared at them, frozen stiff, trying to make sense of what I'm seeing. I couldn't see a face at all. The eyes were just so bright, nothing else stood out. That void of face around the eyes looked blacker than the night. I thought again, well, if this is a cat, how could a cat be big like a person? And why would a cat stand up to stare in my bedroom? The curiosity got me, and I went for it. I flipped my covers off, turned my little 4-year-old body towards the window, and put my feet on the floor. This is the moment the creepiest thing happened, and it will forever be burned into my brain. I got off the bed and got on my knees to get a closer look at this so-called cat. When, at this very moment, this faceless pair of glowing white eyes begins to slowly and steadily tilt to the side. Eyes still locked on me, not blinking once. The feeling of dread and fear shot through my body. Completely terrified, I burst into tears immediately and booked it down the hallway, through the living room and up the stairs to tell my mom. Although I was going as fast as I could, it felt like it took forever. When I got to my mom, I was so upset, I couldn't get any words out. Tears were streaming down my face, and my mom was becoming seriously concerned at this point. She was able to calm me down, just enough for me to get out the words. There's white eyes looking at me through my window, on the bottom. Stuttering and crying hard. Are you sure? My mom asked. I cried out, yes! She didn't even go down to look. She just called the police. I don't remember the time it took for them to arrive, or what they said, because I finally fell asleep in my mom's bed. I do remember faintly waking up to a knock on the door, and my mom going to open it. The cop speaks to her, and I hear her say, "Okay, thank you, good night," and she shuts the door. Did they find it, Mommy? I asked, half asleep. No, honey. He said they couldn't find anyone. My mom told me softly, "It's okay now, just try to go back to sleep." It's safe to say that the next day, my whole window was covered. Fast forward a few years, and I'm in middle school now. Every now and then I would think about that night. Sometimes I wondered if that moment was real, if those eyes were really there. Those unforgettable white eyes. One day, a random thought came up, and I asked my mom if she remembered that night. She tells me, "Yes, of course. Why?" "I don't know, just wondering, I guess," I said. Then my mom proceeds to say, "Well, I never told you this, but when the deputy came out that night, he told me that they made it a priority to get to our house as soon as they could, because not very long before I called 911, they received another call from someone else reporting that someone was looking in their window in our same neighborhood." Hearing that sent chills down my spine, and to this day I wonder who or what was looking at me that night. It was a pretty average day. I met up with some friends, played a few games, and basically just screwed around. My girlfriend and I had made plans to go see a movie that night, which was the weekly norm for us. We are both avid moviegoers, so any chance to hang out and do what we loved was always fun. This particular night was the release of John Wick 3, and both of us were Keanu superfans. Suffice to say, we were really excited. I purchased the tickets in advance in case the theater was full. We showed up, my girlfriend bought the snacks as usual, and we went into the theater. It was decently crowded, as expected on opening night. We went and found seats in the back in case things became a little dull, and we decided to enjoy each other's company per se. But we were surprised to find a thin, sickly-looking man sitting further down the row. We didn't take notice of him for a while, as he just seemed normal and tried to enjoy the movie. About halfway through, I needed to use the restroom. I excused myself and told my girlfriend I'd be back in a few minutes. As I walked down the stairs, I noticed on the opposite side of the room that he was making his way down the stairs as well. Again, this didn't strike me as odd. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and just assumed he needed to use the restroom too, or get popcorn or something. I went into the bathroom and did my business, but as I walked out, I noticed him waiting at the exit. As I passed, I heard him say, "Your friend is pretty. Can I have her?" I did a double take and said, what? He made eye contact and replied, "She is beautiful. How much do you want for her?" I very forcibly told him that she was not for sale and not property you can just offer someone to buy. I then told him to stay away from us or I would call the police. He told me that he would wait near the exit in case I changed my mind. I returned back to my seat, but my girlfriend could immediately tell something was wrong based off the way I looked. I told her that the guy who sat near us earlier was just being creepy, but I didn't tell her what he said because I didn't want to upset her. The movie ended, and as we got up, I remembered what the creep had said about waiting near the exit. I asked one of the staff members if they had seen the guy wandering around based off my description, but they hadn't. My girlfriend then knew something was up, so I told her about what he had said. We both decided that it was best to try and get to my car, so we made our way out of a side exit and made our way to the parking lot. About halfway to our car, I heard a voice yell, "Hey, wait up!" I glanced around and saw the man running at us. He had something in his hand, but I couldn't make out what it was. I told my girlfriend to run, and we both sprinted for the car. I unlocked it, and we hopped in. The guy caught up and tried to force his way in, but by that time I had already locked the car. My girlfriend had already started dialing the police, and I started to back my way out of the parking lot. We drove for a minute before hearing police sirens. 2 squad cars pulled up. One went in the direction of the man as another officer stopped to talk with us more about the situation and what happened. The guy was eventually caught. He was holding a screwdriver and admitted to the officer that he planned on attacking me and my girlfriend. The night was a huge wake-up call to us both, and we saw that the world isn't all perfect. So, creepy guy from the movie theater that tried to attack me and my girlfriend, let's not meet ever again. As always, come out of nightmares.